There is a specific mental habit that the most brilliant thinkers use the moment they lose external stimulation. That sudden surge of creative energy you feel during a quiet moment is actually a high-level cognitive strategy in motion. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to leverage this unique trait. The room falls into a sudden, heavy silence. The world outside stops making demands. For most, this is a moment of discomfort, a void that needs to be filled immediately. But for you, it is something else. It is a visceral shift, a quiet electricity that begins to hum at the base of your skull. You're not just sitting there staring at a wall. You are entering a state of profound internal velocity. Society looks at a person staring into space and sees a lack of ambition. They see a system that is crashed. But what if that blank stare is actually the most active your brain will ever be? What if that silence is the sound of a high-speed engine finally finding its rhythm? You have been told your entire life that doing nothing is a waste of your potential. It is time to realize that for your brain, it is the ultimate optimization. Your blank stare is not a glitch. It is the beginning of a higher-order process. But why does our modern world insist on labeling this mental acceleration as laziness, when it is actually the mechanism that drives the most profound human breakthroughs? Picture yourself on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Everyone around you is busy. They're moving with that slightly frantic, jittery energy we have been taught to call productivity. You, however, are caught in the gravity of a single shadow on the floor. You feel a faint twinge of guilt. You feel like you should be moving, doing, justifying your space in the room. It is a special kind of social torture, trying to look like you are deeply contemplating a complex spreadsheet when you are actually currently rewriting the ending of a movie you saw in 2012. But here is the secret. While the busy people are burning through their mental fuel on shallow tasks, you are world building. You're tracing the invisible lines between distant ideas. To an outsider, you are a frozen screen. To your internal experience, you are a cosmic architect. Your unproductive moments are not flaws in your character. They are the moments when your highest order thinking is finally allowed to breathe. You are not avoiding work. You're engaging in a form of labor that is so complex, it requires the external world to get out of the way. This is the hallmark of a high intelligence quotient. What is actually happening inside your neural architecture during these quiet moments that makes them so fundamentally different from just taking a break? We have been sold a story about how the brain uses energy that is fundamentally incomplete. We assume that when we stop focusing on a task, our brain's power meter drops into a low battery mode. We think the lights go dim to save electricity. But the science tells a much more provocative story. Your brain's metabolic consumption is remarkably stable. It consumes about 20% of your body's energy regardless of whether you are solving a physics problem or staring at a blank wall. The energy doesn't disappear, it just moves. In people with high intelligence quotient markers, this shift is even more pronounced. Let's figure this out. This is a phenomenon known as hyperconnectivity. When the external world stops making demands on your attention, your brain doesn't rest. It pivots. Regions of the brain that are usually separated by task-oriented focus suddenly begin to speak to one another. It is like a city where the main highways close for a festival, forcing the residents to take the scenic back roads. They discover neighborhoods they never knew existed. They find shortcuts. They meet people they would have otherwise ignored. This internal meeting of the minds is why your most profound revelations arrive when you are supposedly bored. How does this metabolic pivot allow you to solve problems that intense, narrow focus can never seem to touch? Imagine your brain is a world-class professional kitchen, where your conscious mind is the head chef following a recipe. while the default mode network is the background chef who experiments with leftovers to create a five-star meal. This background chef is the source of your synthesis response. High intelligence quotient boredom is simply the moment the head chef stops shouting orders and lets the experimental cooking begin. While you think you are doing nothing, your default mode network is busy whisking memories with logic and folding in a dash of intuition. It's connecting a conversation you had last week with a problem you've been struggling with for a month.
Most people are so worried about an empty kitchen that they would rather serve a bowl of instant noodles than wait for the background chef to finish a gourmet feast. Your brain is a dual processor system. Your conscious mind is the first processor, great for spreadsheets and following directions. But the default mode network is the second processor, the one capable of massive, non-linear synthesis. Boredom is the physical key that unlocks that second processor. It is not a void. It is an experimental laboratory in full swing. But there is a modern adaptation that often prevents 99% of people from ever letting this background chef start their work. We are currently living through a period where the brain has developed a fascinating new survival strategy. Because we are surrounded by an infinite stream of information, our minds have learned to seek out constant stimulation as a way to stay ready. This is an efficiency loop. Your brain reaches for your phone or a new tab, not out of a bad habit, but because it's trying to protect you from the perceived risk of understimulation. In a high-stimulation environment, your brain views a quiet moment as a signal to find new data. It is an adaptive response designed to keep you informed and connected. However, this beautiful mechanism for survival can accidentally delay the activation of the default mode network. When you feed your brain a quick digital snack, you are providing it with a safe, predictable form of energy. It is the brain's way of being efficient. It chooses the path of least resistance. It seeks out the quick win of a notification because it's an expert at managing its own resources. But by staying in this input mode, the internal synthesis is put on hold. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, staying engaged with the environment, but it's doing so at the expense of its own deeper processing. So, how do we work with this survival mechanism to reclaim our habit of synthesis without fighting our own biology? You do not need to fight your brain's natural urge for stimulation. You just need to give it a new type of input through what we call a boredom protocol. The strategy is simple: intentional mind wandering. This means specifically choosing windows of time where you provide zero external input for your brain. You can start with just 5 minutes of what we call staring at a wall. No podcasts, no phone, no productive thinking. You are simply clearing the runway so your internal engine can take off. It might feel like you're trapped in a small room with a version of yourself that won't stop talking about that embarrassing thing you did in high school. But that is just the sound of the system rebooting. If you allow yourself to stay in that quiet space, your brain will eventually realize that no external data is coming. It will then naturally pivot back to its internal files. The background chef starts to work. The loading bar over your head finally begins to move. You will find that after a short period of resistance, your brain will start to present you with ideas and connections that were waiting in the wings. By choosing to be bored, you are making a strategic performance move. Once you master this protocol, you begin to realize that doing nothing is actually the most high-leverage activity in your entire day. The ultimate realization is this: high-level intelligence is not measured by how much information you can take in. It's measured by how much information you can synthesize, while you appear to be doing nothing. If you look at the most brilliant thinkers in history, They all shared this strange secret. They were often the people who appeared the least busy. They took long, aimless walks. They sat in chairs for hours looking at the ceiling. They understood that the world moves in a fast-forward blur, but the most important answers are always found in the gaps. Your value is not determined by your busyness. Your value is determined by the quality of the connections your brain makes when it is allowed to breathe. The most brilliant thing you can do for your creativity and your peace of mind is to give yourself permission to be unproductive. Brilliance is not a constant scream. It is a whisper that you can only hear when the world goes quiet. This is just one way your brain is designed to work for you rather than against you, if you only knew how to let it. By embracing these quiet moments, you are finally activating the cognitive strategy of the world's most effective thinkers. You are not a glitch in the system. You are a high-functioning organism that requires silence to reach its full potential. You are not spacing out. You are synthesizing. You are a high intelligence quotient individual using your tools exactly as they were intended. If someone asks why you are staring at the ceiling, just tell them you are currently in a high-level meeting with your internal background chef, and the menu is confidential. We believe that understanding these hidden layers of your own psychology is the first step toward a more empowered life. You have a hidden superpower that you have been trying to suppress because the world didn't have a name for it. But now, you have the name. If this perspective felt like a revelation, please consider subscribing and joining our community. We would love to hear about your own wall-staring breakthroughs in the comments. Join us as we continue to decode the fascinating mechanisms that make us who we are. Next time, we will explore another counterintuitive habit that changes how you view your own mind. Until then, give yourself the gift of a little boredom.